G'day, mate, and welcome to Friday Facts number 281. And I got Mojo with me, and we're
Hello.
both going to go through technical crap.
It's a long one.
Yeah. So
She said.
this is for a few frames more, and this is by, who is it again? You pronounce it.
Posilla.
Priscilla.
I think it is.
We hope so. If
close
not,
enough.
If not, two Australians bastardised it. It's fine. So he went and did Friday Facts 264, which was all about the smoke and everything, and he ended it with the phrase, "No wonder scenes heavy on smoke and trees can tank FPS, especially in 4K. Maybe we should do something about that." And that's basically what he did. So we got sometimes it's just a bug. Technically, the Friday Facts help me summarize what I know, look at problems from a different perspective, and sometimes try to answer questions which I haven't even thought about asking before. For example, I made the overdrawn visualization for a screenshot back in the FFF 264, and whilst writing the FFF, I didn't even analyze them. After doing the blog post, I was released. I looked at it and started thinking, why does smoke create such a huge overdraw blob when it's just barely noticeable in game view? Well, it turns out it was largely due to a bug. Some time ago we optimized smoke particles, so they updated once every 2 seconds, and its animation is interpolated during drawing. Thing is, particles which are destroyed only during their update, and if the lifetime of a particle ended somewhere in the middle of a two-second window, the particle would still be drawn until destroyed. Because smoke fades away and scales up during its lifetime, it would draw itself fully transparent over a large area, making the particle not draw itself past its lifetime, reduce the number of particles being drawn by 15%, and reduce the number of particles being rasterized even more. Additionally, particles below 2% opacity didn't really seem to add anything to the final picture, so we can safely not draw those to get a little extra boost. Basically, we optimized smoke.
Sure.
Which means, from a player's point of view, I might actually be able to turn smoke back on. Because I remember in 14 it was bad.
If 14 was bad, this was the change that happened in 16. Changing smoke over to the triple
Yeah,
smoke.
actually, yeah, it was 15. 15 it was 14, 15 and so on, it was bad.
Yeah, and it was bad especially because turning off smoke didn't actually turn it off. It just made it transparent.
It just didn't bother displaying it.
But it was still, as I say, it was still doing all the rasterization, so it was still doing stuff.
It was still calculating it, it just wasn't showing you. So that was, in 16 they turned that off, so when you actually turn off smoke, it actually turns off smoke. But didn't 14 to 15 they upgrade the boilers or something to add, so it made more smoke?
Yes, I believe so.
I think it was somewhere around about there. No, it's the steam engines now made smoke, whereas beforehand it was the boilers that made smoke. And they were little one-tile things. Yeah, so more smoke in 15, which made the problem worse. And then 16, we finally got the option to turn off smoke, and it actually turned off smoke. And now in 17, they've been optimized even more. So hopefully you can see all the steam coming out of your nuclear reactor. Because currently,
without the game dying.
Yeah, I haven't seen steam coming out of a nuclear reactor since forever. The first time I saw it, and it was like, oh, pretty! And then my FPS tanked, and I'm like, oh, turn that option off.
That's why I like having a 1070.
And clouds get turned off as well, and what's
that used to be the classic one to turn off, just because it messes with video encoding anyway.
Yeah, that's something that we deal with, but I also found it saved a couple of FPS. A couple of things we turn off, just because. So then we've got turret range visualization optimization. Probably a small number of our players actually run into this issue during normal play, but it's a simple problem that we use to learn more about how to use GPUs more efficiently.
I think, just interjecting there, that it's definitely a small number of players that have actually run into it, because I can't actually think of a situation where this actually happened.
I know if I hold a blueprint with a large amount of turrets, it does tank FPS a little bit, but I also know there's a bug with holding large blueprints.
Well, yeah, holding large blueprints tanks FPS anyway.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's that the turret ranges are ticked on, which is what this fix is for, or whether it's just holding the big blueprint full of turrets. It's an either or, maybe both situation. But yeah, turret ranges in map view are rendered with an opaque geometry, no sprites, to an off-screen buffer, which is then subject to blah 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 blah. The solution we end up with is 20 times faster in cases that were too slow than the unoptimized solution. But as you would zoom out more, there'd be more turrets covering less pixels on the screen. The original solution became better. So we turn on the optimization only for when you're zoomed in enough. So if you zoom it all the way and turn on turret ranges, it should be faster in 17. But I've never had the issue at all. And you said you've never had the issue. So...
Yeah, I've never seen it.
And I'm running a 760, so yeah, I'm behind the times. So yeah, on to GPU performance. As always, the root of all performance degradation is memory access. Since we mostly do simple sprite drawing, the GPU has to read pixels from a texture and blend it into the buffer frame. While technically it means reading pixels from another texture, doing some simple maths with two values, and then writing the result back. GPUs are designed to do this on a massively parallel scale and optimized for high memory bandwidth while sacrificing memory latency. The assumption is you want to do at least a little bit of maths on the colors you fetch from the textures to give the resulting image some dynamic detail. Even GPU cores that have many scheduled tasks can switch between them as the current task waiting on some memory operation to finish. When you don't really do any maths, add dynamic details, and all details come from the drawing more layers of sprites, GPU cores quickly reach their limit of maximum tasks, and every one of them is stalled by memory access. This is not to say we don't hit memory bandwidth limits on some hardware. For cases where we do hit memory bandwidth limits, we add an option to do rendering in 16 color depth as opposed to normal 32-bit. This option is intended for all GPUs and integrated GPUs. So again, more optimizations. Obvious ways shade less pixels, something I mentioned all the way back in 227, by splitting the tree shadows from the tree trunks to remove a large area of completely transparent pixels, which I remember reading about, which again was a highly detailed Friday Facts, which was we split things apart and saved all this blank space that again saved frames, which meant you can have forests again, mostly.
Surprising number of people can't look at forests.
Our community map currently this month is nothing but forest. And I have to admit, compared to the one we did December, which was nothing but ore is probably still harder than forest. But I think forest is something you encounter more often.
Yeah, really a problem with ore?
Oh yeah, because every single pixel's changing. It's mixed ore. It's every single pixel is every single bit of ore is mixed. It's not a solid patch. It's with a dangerous ore, so everything's jumbled together. Again, mentioned in Friday Facts 227, mentioned minimaps, which downscale copies of textures that are used when texture is being scaled down. What they were using is a 100% scale and a 70 and a 50% scale, and mashing the two together to get a 75% scale. In the new rendering code, they're able to control this, so the sprites are more likely to start off at around about 75% and therefore more performance. So again, GPU optimizations. Texture compression, which is probably something that is 50-50. It's sort of interesting to see, and I don't know, for the first two engineers, can you see any difference between the two of them?
Yes.
Where do you see the difference?
Let's look at the edges.
Yeah.
You can also see... You do need a pretty decent monitor to actually spot it. I couldn't see it on my... When I was first read it, I couldn't tell the difference on my phone.
So I did the same. I read the Friday Facts on my phone. Couldn't see an ounce of difference.
It should look more pixelated, the BC3 graphic.
It is, and the spot I can see it is the abs. The abs, you can see clear defined lines on the left, and on the right, yeah, not so much. I didn't notice. Grainy. I didn't notice around the edge. I now see it around the handle of the gun, and And I have no idea how
particularly
this
the
is going to
gun
be on
too, you
YouTube.
can't-
That's
it
another
goes
question,
quite nasty.
because that's going to get compressed. So so basically there are 3 formats that they can use, and they've decided to use the BC3 format.
Whatever that is.
Mostly. It's a type of format. I don't know. Read the Friday Facts in detail if you want to know all the detailed answers. But they work well in 3D art, not 2D art, which is what Factorio is, which contains a lot of small detail. Our art's not so bad as long as the sprites stay. As soon as we start applying compression on the animations, even tiny changes in individual pixels will result in larger changes of blocks that can contain them, and result animation looks very noisy. And yeah, as we both said, the abs, the gun turret, I thought I'd see it on the head, and I really don't that much. Maybe where it swings over the chest, but yeah, that's where I was expecting to see it. Another developer, covered how they did this, and I actually read their blog post and looked through the pictures, and they handled it by making their sprites bigger, so therefore the gap between a black line, a yellow line, a white, and another black line, like we've got in the abs, or a black, a grey, and a black, was wider. And that's how they combated it. And we've tried it, and it just didn't look good because it made their sprites look pretty blurry to make them bigger to start with and then compress them down. And then we go on to video compression. So video compression, like JPEG and H.264, which is what most people view their photos as and what they watch videos at, or with, exploit the fact that human vision is actually pretty bad at recognizing colors and much more sensitive to changes in brightness. Instead of...
I was just saying.
Instead of red, green, blue color space, they use a color based on luma, brightness, and chrominance, color, and apply a better quality compression to the luma component and a lower quality to the color component, resulting in a very high image to the human eye. Some people thought this technique could be used in probably of the GPU block compression formats. They found a new compression format, and you probably won't notice artifacts unless you zoom in a lot and look for them. In fact, and I like this one. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I enabled texture compressions by default and didn't tell anyone. Whenever I asked anyone on the team if they disabled it, they said they didn't know it was even turned on. So pretty happy about that. That's the ultimate test. I turned something on, nobody noticed, it's passed.
Yep.
So in 17, texture compression graphics is changed to a drop-down list containing none, high quality, and low quality. High quality will use the custom compression that they've found and will be the default on most computers. Low quality will use the BC3 as intended for use only on weak GPUs. And then we can see the 3 pictures here, and uncompressed looks good. Still looks better, slightly, but it's going to really kill you. Actually, you don't even have an option of uncompressed, do you?
But I think it's the same as disabling it. Yeah, it's good. There is a little bit of pixelation, a bit of that sort of grain.
There is
with high quality compression, but it's not very noticeable. You really got to push in to see it.
Yeah, they don't have the option of uncompressed at all.
Okay.
But yeah, high quality looks great, and low quality. Look, when we get further down, they're covered what these optimizations have done, and unless you're running on a really old PC or integrated graphics card, you're probably not going to need low quality. After we added the high-res worms, biters, and spitters, VRAM usage rose up to 3.5 gigabytes with high-res enabled, obviously. When no compression, even the shader one was applied. So that's no compression at all. Compressing just the shadows decreased RAM to 16 levels of 2.5 gig, whilst high-quality compression enable VRAM to currently about 1 gigabyte without minimaps. This means vanilla should be perfectly playable on high-res on a GPU with 2 gigabytes of VRAM, and in combination with texture streaming, these GPUs should be able to keep up high-res even in cases where mods add a lot of new sprites. High-resolution sprites were originally intended for players with most powerful computers, but But 17 have essentially become the new standard, which is the joy of computers.
Hooray!
Yeah.
So that's good. That means people with really low-end cards. What's the actually? I might have to look it up. What like a 1060 VRAM size is?
1060 currently 4 gig.
Okay, that's actually still pretty high. I was
You like
4 gig
gotta
RAM
go.
goes back to the end of the 600 series.
Like,
They came in 2 and 4.
yeah, you're looking at really a workhorse GPU rather than a gaming GPU. So, in the NVIDIA series, anything under a GTX whatever 50 is really a workstation GPU, and anything over that 50 mark, so a 60 and above, is really a gaming GPU. So anything 60 above, like a 760, is probably
Even a
going to
1050
have...
you can easily get with 4 gig.
Yeah, like anything over like a 760 is pretty much going to be 4 gig. Maybe like the 8 somethings, the 820s, the 830s might have only had 2 gig. But even then,
860 have.
Set the settings to low. Look, I've got a
4 gig.
Yeah,
there you go.
I've got a 760 and I've got 4 gigs. So
my previous cards were GTX 670s and they came with 2 gig, but they are 2013 cards.
Look, I've got an old. I think I got a 460 somewhere, and like a 260 somewhere. Factorio is almost getting the stage where I could pull out an ancient card and whack it with an ancient CPU and still play the game. I might not be able to build big or anything. Probably won't get to 1,000 science packs per minute, but I could play the game at least.
Well, you wouldn't be able to get to an X1600, one of those old Radeons.
No.
There's a funny story because there was a forum post where someone was complaining their dedicated X1600 graphics card was performing considerably worse than their integrated graphics. And it turns out that the performance difference between I think it was like a 5th gen or 6th gen Intel integrated graphics, it's like 2 or 3 times as powerful as a Radeon X1600.
Yeah.
Those things are from like 2005, to put it in perspective.
At the rate Factorio is going, the rate they're optimizing stuff, I give it 5 years before you can play these on your phone. You can play Factorio on your phone because the devs have optimized it so much and phones have got so good that... Factorio for mobile, anybody?
It's possible if mobiles keep scaling up.
Yeah. Oh, well, look, my current mobile phone's got an octa-core CPU. And who knows what graphics card. So yeah, on with the Friday Facts. Now, look at these graphs. We always like pictures. Pictures are great. We took some benchmarks of some extreme scenes. The first one's from the public Factorio last year. Was it last year or the year before?
Last year, 2018. Okay. Middle of 2018.
The second one is from a bug report. I chose this save because it has rails going through a forest and because I could get a really low FPS on it even with 16. Use the map editor carpet the grass with decoratives. I've highlighted there for anybody who wants to read on the screen really quickly what their benchmarking setup was. But long story short, they had a GPU with 2 gig and 1 gig of RAM on a okay CPU. And then they had a high performance, and this is a GTX 980 with 4 gig of RAM that was running the game at 4K.
I wouldn't call a 980 high performance, and it's only a 4 gig card.
I wouldn't call it high performance either. Technically it's 2 generations behind, even though I don't know if the RTX is actually considered a whole new generation, but whatever.
It pretty much is. But the main thing is that 6 to 8 is sort of your baseline for high performance now.
Yeah, so the test that they ran, and this is on just smoke. It is one of the nuclear power plants off the Factorio event. Literally the whole map is just, it looks like this. It's water pumps straight into...
I remember that world.
Heat exchangers.
Funny world.
It was into nuclear power plants with turbines. It was nothing complicated, but there was smoke everywhere. And we can see even a GTX 750 Ti, we've more than halved our render time. A GTX 660, which is even older, we went from 38 milliseconds down to 4.25 milliseconds. And the biggest thing you need to know is to get 60 frames per second, you need to get 16.66 milliseconds per update or per frame to get that 60 frames per second.
And this was actually something going through before, is that this render time is included in that update. So this eats into your potential
Overall
UPS.
Yeah. All right. So it does mean on a scene like this with a Intel HD graphics 550 on a laptop, they're at 22.61 milliseconds. Plus the game actually calculating on top of that probably means they're around about 30 UPS. I gather.
It just depends how much milliseconds there is.
In-game update, I realise.
Yeah.
But I'm figuring...
And there's a few other things that...
Yeah, like, I'm figuring with 22 milliseconds done by just the graphics engine and then potentially 8 done by the game itself, 30... it's half.
30.
It's about 30 milliseconds.
I actually just checked. My other PC's got a 750 Ti, so it is actually good sign for even the first one going down by as much as it does, because I had to set that one on low graphics to get it to run reasonably well.
The only time I have to use low graphics is when we're doing something extreme, like the Dangerous map with ore everywhere. I haven't had to do it with trees yet. It's stuff like that when you're moving in a tank. That's the only time I've had to bring the settings down. But 9 times out of 10, it runs fine. But yeah, you can even see it on high-end graphics cards. So, like, screaming through the roof at 4K, we went from 13.7 milliseconds down to 6. That's massive. That's a
yeah, it's huge.
It's 50% drop. Like, first-person shooter games would love to see these graphs and be like, done. Yep, half a milliseconds on every single render. So that's the first one, and I'm going to quickly say no high res for any nuclear stuff. Just for the record. Second render. So second render is it wasn't taken from Factorio, or was taken from?
It was taken from a bug report.
Bug
report specify exactly.
Yeah, and it has rails going through the trees. Now, the only thing that the dev did is he actually took this grass decorative and just painted the whole area with it to make it as horrible as possible on the poor GPU.
Yeah.
This is why you can't see the train tracks, because they're just covered in
you just get rails. There's everything else just grass and
ground debris. Yeah.
Ground debris.
And again, same story. We went from before to afterwards. Even on the really old 750, well, the really, really old 660, we went from 21 milliseconds down to 5.
It's interesting. 660 gains a lot more. I think that's more to do with the age of the GPU chip itself and how it works.
Yeah, and on top of that, the 660 is a lot lower core clock speed than a 750.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. It'll have it'll be hitting a bottleneck somewhere, which is now no longer hitting a bottleneck.
Yeah, but like even like this is a worse performance for the integrated graphics. So if you're running on your poor CPU's GPU, avoid running your train tracks through a forest that you've gone in the map editor and filled with ground debris, because your frames will still suck. They'll be way better, but they'll still suck.
Oh yeah. At least now, I think this graph is pretty representative of what you'd improve, but like on a fairly dense scene. Oh yeah, look, that's what I take away from it.
Any sort of thing you're running, unless you happen to be one of the poor, unlucky people that have a 750 Ti, it's like a half the frame rate, or half the render time, right? For just about every type of card and condition. So it's a win-win all around. It means that hopefully you and I, when we're streaming, will get less questions of why is my FPS so much lower than my UPS? And the answer is...
although that'll never go away. Admittedly, though, you notice that a 980 has a higher millisecond time than a 750.
Yes, but it is running at 4K.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah.
So that's 4 times the amount of pixels?
I don't think 4K is.
Yeah, it's double the width and double the height. So it's, yeah, 4 times the amount of pixels. It's 3,800 and something by 2048. 2040, 2080, whatever.
It's meant to be 14. Oh, once you get above the 1920 by 1080, things get weird. It's sort of a free-for-all.
Yeah, we had this conversation another week about 4K and how it doesn't make any sense. But it's a massive improvement. GPUs are going to do so much better in 17. You'll clearly see that there is no mention of 17 anywhere, so it's still...
So it's a next week. It's a Feb 30.
Yeah, Feb 30, Feb 29th. At least there is a Feb 29 in 2020.
There's got to be one eventually.
Eventually. So yeah, that's about it. You know, it's full of detail. If you're really into GPUs and how this crap works, I really recommend go reading it. It is an interesting read, just not for video. And yeah, I guess, I don't know, zooming in is going to be that much better. Actually, that's one of the other things. Going from the zoom right the way in to the zoom right the way out, which we all do all the time. Hopefully, that'll have less lag, right, with all these updates.
Maybe you'll be able to zoom out and appreciate your spaghetti monster just a little bit more.
Yeah, or zoom out and make sure that your UPS doesn't take a 2 millisecond dump, right, whilst you're doing the zooming. But yeah, it's look, all optimizations are good. This has been another great one. I was looking at upgrading my poor GPU, and I'm like, nope, Factorio doesn't need me to upgrade. I'm not upgrading. It's going to get another year or two out of it.
You want to wait like 6 months, or anyway, 4 or 6 months.
Yeah, GPUs
let the new NVIDIA stuff settle.
The GPUs are insane at the moment. No, do not upgrade it unless you happen to be bathing in money for the fun of it. That's the only advice I'm going to give you. Anyway, that's it for this Friday Facts. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I guess we'll see you next week with hopefully news of 17, maybe.
And don't forget to check out that new HD power pole that's in that last picture.
Oh yeah, that's
everyone gets
right.
overstimulated. Everyone's been all overstimulated about it, but we've seen it in at least 2 previously that I can recall.
The only thing that's a little bit clearer on this one, and I've got the image here because it popped up all the way through the forums and Reddit and everything else, was, yes, in the middle of the forest scene with the train is this power pole. Hang on, scroll back. There we go. The only thing that is a little bit more clearer on this is you can see that there's a red wire attached and in the power pole structure that goes to the right-hand side, and there's a green wire on the left-hand side that goes to the left-hand side. That's it.
It's just a tiny little detail. It's I couldn't even see it at first. I had to zoom in.
The same's on the substation. They're clearly marked that red wire goes one side, green wire goes the other, which I guess if you're doing combinators might help. But as you said, red wires. Not so much with
combinators, it's more of a visual thing.
But as you said, red wires are already red and green wires are already stuck on one side of the power poles already in 16, aren't they?
No, they're not. They're on the new substation though. That was the only other time we've seen that. But yeah.
In 16, you can't potentially go from a power pole in the north to a power pole in the south and move the red wire from the left side to the right side, can you?
No, that's fixed.
So that's fixed. The only thing we're doing is we're having a visual representation that it's fixed.
Yeah. There's a visual representation on the pole that the wire exists there.
Yeah. Or
a visual hint that a wire can plug in there.
Yeah.
I say it's fixed left and right, but it's not 100% true, because if you force the pole to automatically rotate, if it rotates 180 degrees, then it actually does flip.
Okay, well there you go. You can cross your wires.
You can't actually tell it to go on a particular side though.
There you go. You can cross your wires. So yeah, that's it. That's it for this Friday Facts. Optimizations. Right. Power poles got red and green wire. That's it. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.